All right, so round two, coming off of that loss in round one, we get an English opening, and against the English, I'm playing e5, and then g3, knight f6, bishop g2, and I played this move c6. I vaguely, or briefly looked at this before the game. The English, I was not. I was actually sort of expecting an English opening in this game, but I was preparing against someone who I didn't end up getting paired with. So it was against a different opponent, I was expecting the English, and then I end up playing this opponent, and I still get an English. So I was sort of lucky to have looked at some of these lines ahead of time. Um, Knight c3, d5, takes, d4, and then I was looking at playing e4, this sort of advanced variation. Um, Bishop g5 I had looked at. I understood that the idea of it was to play knight bd7 so that I could always recapture on f6 with the knight. And because the knight on c6 is actually not as useful as it appears. Really, eventually this bishop is going to trade and I want to be able to recapture with the knight. And then I can just develop normally. e3, and now I'm out of book because e3 was not a move that I had looked at. I had looked at what I looked at. I think I had looked at queen b3 in this position. So e3, h6 takes, knight takes. I had eventually determined that h6 was the right way to go. I could turn the computer on because I've already seen what it has to say. But yeah, h6 is in fact the correct way to go. Takes, queen b3. And now I need to sacrifice the b7 pawn. That is the correct way to play. So what I mean by that is I'll play in either order bishop d6 or bishop e6, knight e2, then the other one, and then b2, b7 pawn can be sacrificed. So for example, bishop d6, which probably makes more sense to start with this order because then I'm only sacrificing the pawn on one move and not on two moves. So knight ge2, and then here if I play bishop e6, queen takes b7, and I should just castle or rook b8. I mean, castling is the most logical move, and I in the game I just wasn't quite sure how I'm going to win back the pawn. Like there seemed to be ways like queen b3, for example, where like I'm not really winning back the pawn, but there's just so much compensation that this is what I should have gone for. Um, I just wasn't sure. I didn't totally remember how it was working out. So in the end, I played this move, Queen A5 to B4, thinking that if I can just trade off the queens or at least force the queens back, then I'll be able to develop naturally. The problem is playing Queen A5 to B4 gives White the opportunity to play Knight E2, Queen B4, Knight F4. It's a very strong move. And the idea is with this move that I don't have time. You can imagine in this position, if queen takes b4, bishop takes b4, then I get this end game. I'll be able to develop as I would like. Um, but here, I don't have the opportunity to be able to develop and protect the e6 pawn without getting some terrible endgame, which I end up getting. We can look at that soon. But there is this moment, bishop d7, this move. I looked at this move for a reasonable amount of time, probably 10 minutes, because it's the move I want to play. If I can protect the pawn on d5 with bishop d7 to c6, then I'm pretty happy with the position. I'll be able to play rook d8, I'll develop my dark square bishop to d6, probably take the knight on f4, and this position I was feeling very comfortable about. The issue is the d5 pawn is hanging, right? So bishop d7, knight takes d5. And here, white actually is sacrificing a piece. It doesn't seem immediately obvious that white is sacrificing a piece, but the line that I was looking at in the game was bishop d7, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5, queen takes b2, which is a fork. And then I was looking at the line castles, queen takes c3, queen takes e4 check, either at any point, queen takes e4 check, rook fc1, attacking the queen. Let's just put it on the board so you can see. Bishop d7, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5, queen takes b2. I was looking at castles in this position. Queen takes c3, and then whichever order you play it in. I think I was looking at playing rook fc1 first. I was going to go to a3, queen takes e4, check, bishop e7. This position arises from many different move orders, but then, queen takes b7 is possible. And I was terrified of this position. I saw that I could play rook d8, but rook c7. I was looking at this position from afar, and it's like, yeah, I have an extra bishop. White has three? I guess only two pawns, but probably you're going to be able to win a third at some point. And the bishop is very good. The rooks are going to be in, the queen's in. I can't castle because the bishop on d7 is hanging. I can't move that either because um, well, I felt like there was going to be bishop c6 check or rooks. It was hard to look at it from afar, and I just got scared. Um, really, the machine shows that there is reason to be concerned, but there's this idea of h5, rook h6, and then the rook slides across this way, which is very, very nice because then I don't even have to castle to get the rook in the game. I'm actually with my king in the middle, since you are down a piece, I'll be able to hold off these extra two pawns. I just I can't let them get too far advanced, which is hard to see that I'm going to be able to stop them from afar. But yeah, realistically, it's hard for white to go for this as well. Like if we go back to the game, if I played bishop d7, it's very possible that white would calculate this line with takes on d5 and not sacrifice the piece, in which case I'd be totally fine after bishop c6. So realistically, I should have played bishop d7. This was sort of the last chance not to be worse in some endgame. Instead, I just take on b3 and play bishop e6. And after a very strong move f3, I realized that I'm just going to have to play some terrible rook endgame because everything else is just immediately losing. My center is collapsing. So bishop b4 takes. Now here there's two moves, and it's very interesting what the machine shows. I can either play knight takes d5, knight takes e4, or d takes e4. And the only difference is that on knight takes e4, it's a purely like a double rook endgame. Both players have two rooks, and my structure is bad. On d takes e4, we get the same position, but white has a bishop on g2, and I have a knight on f6. And it felt like, why would I want those minor pieces on the board? Because all my knight is doing is protecting the pawn that his bishop is attacking. So, like, it just sort of it puts me in an even more passive situation. Um, so I just want to take a look at this line. I played knight takes e4, and we got this rook endgame, which is horrible for me, but maybe it's survivable. Uh, but the machine shows that after this move, now somehow king e2, bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3. Somehow this, oh wait, actually no, this evaluation is the same. So there must be on knight takes e4 a better move for white. Takes, 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 takes. Castles. Why is castling so much better? I haven't looked at this. Why is castling so much better? Like, okay, if I just go for the same thing, takes, takes. Oh, you're a tempo up. You're a tempo up. You're already threatening rook f4. And if I play g5, rook a5, king e7, this is sort of exactly what happened in the game. But if my knight was on f6, uh, and your bishop was on g2, then the rook would not have as much access to these squares. This is very interesting. So probably, like, here's the game. If I play a5 here, then you're not. If I play a5, it stops rook a5. So this is what I should have done. I didn't see this, so I just played rook f8, and now after rook f1, um, I play king e7, or I play g5, right? So because I need to stop both rook f4, which would just win a clean pawn off the bat, and also rook a5. And so the only way to do that is if I don't take on e4 with the knight, I leave the knight on the board. Then these moves aren't really as big of threats. That was hard for me to evaluate. I thought that my best chances would be in the rook endgame, but you can't really think like that. You have to sort of calculate, be more, look more closely at the lines, which I was not able to do. So this was the game continuation. Rook takes f8, king takes f8, rook a5, king f7, which I thought was important because I thought that if I play king e7, then rook e5 is allowing d5, there's a pin. So king f7, rook e5, a5, trying to generate some counterplay. And here my opponent played I thought this was an inaccurate move in the game, rook takes e4, and it is because it does allow me a little bit more counterplay than I should really have. Rook takes e5, a4. It's actually interesting here. White can blockade my a pawn, which will get to a2. White can blockade with either the rook or the king. With the king, you're actually more at risk of experiencing some issues. So my opponent correctly chose rook e5, a4, takes. The rook gets back just in time. And now I play king g6, trying to get some counterplay with my king. What's nice about this position for me is that I have a rook that can move and wait, whereas white's rook cannot. So white is actually subject to some zugzwangs in these lines. e4 is a very strong move. Now I play king h5, which is a good try, intimating that I'm probably just going to try to go in here and get some play with my king while your rook is tied down to the pawn. If you run your king over, you try to win the pawn. By that time, my king will have generated enough counterplay to win. This forces my opponent to play sort of actively in the center, but d5 is a mistake because I can just take it and I can play king g6. In the game, I play king g4 and immediately regret it because what I really want to do is play king g6, and then if you start running the pawn, my king takes the pawn. Whereas if I play king g4, as happens in the game, now d6 is a very strong move. Luckily for me, my opponent doesn't see d6, which would force me to go all the way back. I would have to take it with the rook, then he'll take my pawn, and he'll have this extra c pawn, which in some cases can be winning. But king e3, and now after king f5, I'm in the game. And I sort of felt like I was in the game at this point, because after king d4, it's this Zugzwang idea that I was talking about, where white really, you can't ever move the rook away. So as long as I can get some sort of construction where my king is blockading these pawns, stopping them from moving forward, I should be able to hold. So I just wait. I wait with rook a7. I can wait with pretty much any move. I can play like h5, g4, whatever. I can wait with any move. And I sort of understood this concept. I play rook a7, c4, and now I just need to wait with the rook on a square that allows. There's this idea. This is a very important idea, which I actually saw, but wasn't able to see it in coordination with other things, which is that on king c3, I need to be able to play king e5, because on king b3, I need to be able to play king d4, so that on rook takes a2, I'll be able to check, take the pawn with my king, and then collect this pawn. That's what I need to do. So I need to be able to have all of that. And also on c4, I'll be able to check on a4, and then play king e5, and I'll pick up these pawns. The rook checking is never a problem because after moving the king, the rook just needs to go back to the corner to blockade the pawn. So this is a draw. I have a draw here, but I play this terrible move, rook a5. And the reason this is such a bad move is because the reason I play rook a5 first, I'll give you the reason I play it first, which is that I'm a little bit scared about king c5, but king c5 is not a threat. King c5, I play king e5, and you can never push these pawns forward or develop the king too much, because if you try to go further, I'll be able to I'll just give some checks. If the king moves away, I think it's rook c7 check. I think that's actually sort of an important move. Like let's say I just sit. If king c5, king e5, king here, I guess I can give any check. But the point is I'm basically just giving frontal checks. And if you come too close, now I'm in time to take on c4. And if you come close, I guess you can't even try to go to b6. Like if I go here, 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 yeah, you can't even go to b6 because I'll just take c4. So there's these frontal checks. So rook a5 is trying to prevent a threat that's not even a threat, which isn't great. It also doesn't help that I didn't have much time here, but it's not really like a good excuse. Um, okay, so now the reason it loses. The reason it loses is because now I don't have rook on the b file check. So now it's just king c3 is winning because king e5, king b3, king d4, this idea, I need to be able to play a check on the b file so that I can take on c4 on rook takes a2. Like I need to check here so I can take on c4 and then I'll be able to take on d5 and it'll be draw. But I don't have a check. So the game goes like a little bit further, but it's just, I have to resign. So another really tough loss. Um, I mean, what to say about this one? I had a reasonable opening up until the point where I played queen. I probably queen a5 is the first, like, I'm maybe misstepping a little bit with this idea. It's not bad, but it's like not the most accurate move. I should really be developing my bishops and sacrificing pawn on b7 for some active play. Um, Probably then not playing bishop d7 at the point where I take on b3. Bishop d7, I think, is definitely a move I should be playing. I then not this line. I then play very accurately in this to go into this rook endgame up until the point where I have to play rook. I have to play a5 to stop this rook a5, rook e5. But even at that point, it's still not the easiest for white to play. White definitely makes a mistake here, taking on e4. I would give this move a mistake. Maybe an inaccuracy, I guess, is better, but it's not the right thing for white to do. It allows me to get some counterplay. I take full advantage of the counterplay. King g4 is definitely not the best square because I need to be able to stop this pawn. I need to stay in the square with my king. I should just run back this way and go grab it. Because white is in Zugzwang. So I have, I've generated enough counterplay at this point that I should be able to hold. White misses the opportunity, and now I have not an easy draw, but like if I understand the concept, it is an easy draw. Like I don't have to find that many moves. I just have to find one plan, which I sort of even found, but I just wasn't able to combine the ideas in order to actually make the draw, and we end up losing the game. So 2 losses to start this tournament. Coming off of the World Open tournament, that was pretty brutal. It felt like, okay, I haven't won a game in a very long time, and I just am not. I'm not playing poorly, but I'm also not playing well enough to not lose. So it's just a very unfortunate combination of feelings because it's like, okay, I can see that, there's these couple of moves here and there that I should really be seeing, or like I should, not be playing these things, but it felt like a bit of a harsh punishment, I guess. Uh for missing the things that I was like the sorts of moves that I was missing. I feel like they were sort of hard to play, or like these concepts, whatever. It doesn't really matter. So 2 losses to start this tournament. I'll see you in the next round. Yeah, thanks for watching.